You are about to hear the world's only podcast hosted by a Brooklyn-based, songwriting, Jesus-loving couple. I'm Melinda May.
I'm Trevor Knight, and this is Stronger Voices.
Each episode is simply one of our personal conversations recorded and shared with you in hopes you'll be encouraged.
We're glad to have you with us today, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Stronger Voices. So, what's going on? What's going on in your life? How are you today?
I'm so good.
That's so good.
Yeah, I was in the studio with you for
We were in the
days.
studio.
Yeah, and we recorded a song each. I recorded a song called Yes, Yes, which I'm so excited about. It's about, I had this epiphany last fall, essentially, like this epiphany of what I thought true love actually is. True love between people, true love from God, and it just struck me, and I wrote about it, and I'm very passionate about this song, and I really hope it encourages people, and I think a lot of people have a story like this, sort of the story that I tell in Yes, Yes, just in romantic relationships, but also it reminds me of the type of love that God has for people, you know, and it helped me to understand and helped me to have faith in the type of like giant unconditional love that God has for me and for his children. So anyway, I'm really excited about this song, and that's what it's about. So
It's definitely going places. That song's going places. I love it.
If God wills, God, I pray.
Every part of it, every section, structurally, it's just, it makes sense. It makes sense, and it's so satisfying, and it scratches an itch I didn't know I had, but I love listening to it. I listen to it all the time. Yeah,
and it's amazing how God works. So the last time we were in the recording studio, this was, 6 weeks ago?
Yes.
I was recording a different song called Red Leather Head Turner. And my the audio engineer, producer, Joe Loftus, who owns the studio, had sent me a text message that said, hey, Ed Kuzo, an incredible musician who is in a band called University Drive.
And a really good man.
And a great man, yeah. And Joe Loftus was like, hey, do you want Ed to come in and work on your songs? And I never got this text. I never even knew it was sent to me until
And people say that all the time. Oh, I never got your text.
Yeah.
But verified, both phones
We
open
were
at the same
looking at the
time.
phones.
Text was never received.
Exactly. I'm like, Joe, I was looking at his phone, and it was like this paragraph of a text message. And I showed him my phone, and I'm like, Joe, it never came through. So we were like, okay. So now it's way too late. We're already halfway through the song, and I'm like, man, I had the chance to work with this guy, and I didn't even know it. Okay. So then we're driving, I believe, to the studio 6 weeks later to work on this song, Yes, Yes. And it was kind of unclear if my producer, Tim Husty, was going to be around, and I thought, oh my gosh, Ed Kuzo is the guy who should produce this song. And if you listen to University Drive, his band, you'll see what I mean. It's very, I don't know, that, like, I think that Ed is really good at understanding I'm very careful how I use this word, but I don't know how else to express it. Like, you can really feel his music, but I almost want to say, like, it, in a spiritual way too, like it really moves you, you know, even if it's not the type of music you typically listen to, the way it's produced, it's just moving.
Yeah, he's a great musician technically, but he has a great understanding of what the song is supposed to evoke in a listener, I think. He can just tell how best to make the song receivable.
Something like that, yeah. You know, probably a combination of a bunch of things, but I was just like, man, like, it would be incredible if he could be on this song. So anyway, I ended up texting him on the drive over, and because, you know, I missed that text completely for Red Leather Head Turner. So for this song, I remembered, and I was like, hey, you should come into the studio. And he ended up
and he was amped to be there. He was so excited to be there.
Yeah.
And he was so
He's such a humble person. He's so humble. But so yeah, he produced it and played all the instruments on it, and it was just so right. So check out University Drive. I'm probably going to be saying that a lot. I'll say it on this podcast again. I'll probably say it on my social media, but definitely listen to University Drive and check out Yes, Yes when it comes out, produced by Ed Kuzo. But yeah, so Ed anyway, I just saw God's hand in that and God's timing and how like missing that text, because Red Leather Head Turner I think turned out the way it was supposed to, you know, and Yes Yes definitely needed that sort of touch.
And you can tell in both of those songs that you're right, the producer had a big hand in how it turned out, and had a different person produced it, it would have been a different song. Lyrics and melody might have been the same, but different song.
It's a different song. It's so interesting because music is so human and so spiritual. When Tim Husty, that's my producer who I've been working with for almost 10 years, when he plays bass on a song, you just know that, I don't know how, I'm just like, that is how Tim Husty plays the bass. That's how, you know?
Sure, yeah.
As opposed to, you know, I've worked with a lot of bass players, but everybody, and that's not just that producer, that's every person, they just have the way that they play their guitar.
Sure.
So, this is funny. I sent Yes Yes to Taylor, and she sent right back to me. She's like, that sounds like Trevor on the piano, you know, because
really,
yes, she's like, specifically, she's like, the ending part, did Trevor play the end piano? And I'm like, yes, that's Trevor. And she's like, it felt like him, you know. And
it's so interesting.
I love stuff like that, like kind of qualitative things that you really can't prove in any way, you know, or it would be really difficult to prove with like hard evidence or science or numbers. But it's understood, and everybody just knows that, you know, even if you're playing the exact same notes, it's just different. So it really does matter who plays on your song and who produces your song.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about Twists and Turns, though, the song that you recorded.
Yeah, sure. So quick recap. We were in the studio for 4 days, and we each recorded a song. So give or take about 2 days each we spent working on these songs. And Tim Husty did produce that song. So Tim Husty produced Red Leather Head Turner.
I think, yes, he did, and also Jay Preston, too. I would say had a lot of say
he did.
Red Leather Head Turner.
And then that same studio run, so 6 weeks ago, he was there working on my song as well. So he worked on both of our songs at the same time. I recorded Truth Is, and he played drums and bass and electric and organ and a few other things on that song. So this time, when you had Ed work on yours, it was so cool. God definitely opened doors with this song. So I recorded the song called Twists and Turns in the last few days in the studio. And we didn't even know, because Ed was only going to be there 1 day, maybe 2 days, and during that time he was going to be working on your song. So we didn't really know who was going to work on mine. And so we basically texted Tim, and last minute he was like, oh, yeah, sure, I can come in for this evening. So literally, like, we worked on your song, Yes, Yes, for all of the first day and half of the second day. And then starting at like 5 o'clock on day 2, we start working on my song. So we lay down a scratch acoustic guitar track so that I could sing over it, and then we use that vocal track as kind of a bass line for everything else. And then Tim Husty comes in that night at like 6:30, and he plays drums, he plays bass, he plays acoustic guitar, he plays electric guitar,
many layers of electric guitar.
Yeah, 3 layers of electric guitar, including invents this riff that now characterizes the song, you know, that wasn't there before. So, and we were out of there by, 1 in the morning. So in a matter of...
Was it 1? I swear it was 2. No, we got home at 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So in a matter of 6 hours, Tim Husty basically took the song that I just had an acoustic guitar line for, lyrics and melody, and made it into a song.
Yeah.
And it was unclear if he was even going to be there that day.
Yeah.
So just like you said, little things like that, who plays on your song. If he didn't show up that night, we probably would have programmed electronic drums, and then you probably would have played acoustic guitar. I probably would have played piano. The guy running the studio, Joe Loftus, probably would have played electric guitar.
Yeah, and Joe Loftus can play acoustic too. Joe Loftus is and Joe Loftus also really understands drums too. So it would have been
It would have been
song.
fine. I'm sure it would have turned out great, but it's a different song.
It would have been different
because Tim Husty was on it, and I'm so thankful for him. He's been on almost every one of your songs, right? Going back,
I think
that
every
you've
single
recorded
song.
at JL.
I don't think I have a song without him.
And
I don't.
He
Maybe
he has just similar to Ed, he has a grasp of musically what to do and how to make it work,
Mhm.
and what the song is supposed to mean and how to evoke that emotion. So I'm so thankful for him. And then the next 2 days, we basically just kind of fine-tuned both of our songs, put a little flourish here and there, change some production here and there, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. I was listening to both of our songs last night, and it's crazy to think that a week ago those didn't exist.
Yeah.
And now they're these totally polished sonic products that you can send around, and it sounds like one cohesive thing when it's actually 50 to 100 tracks being played at the same time. It's amazing. The work they do there at JL is incredible. I'm so thankful.
I think that's the mark. You said something that just reminded me of something. I think that's the mark of part of what makes a really good producer. Like Tim has the ability to understand. I used to be really terrible at articulating. I'm still not great. Definitely not great at it, but used to be way worse at articulating what I wanted in that part of a song. And I used to be like, oh man, it sounds so like what are some of the words I would use? I'm like, I want something that sounds like dragons, or something. It's like, okay, what is she talking about? Or like, I'm like, yeah, that snare sounds like it's like a girly snare, or like I'll say stuff like that, and instead of saying like, oh, there's too much attack or too much high end or something like that.
Yeah.
And what Tim has done like the past 10 years is somehow understand what I'm saying and able to be like, okay, the reason she thinks that sounds like when she says dragons, like this is what she means, and here's the technical way we can achieve it, So anyway,
so interesting because I think I definitely speak that language of, attack and high end.
You do.
When Tim comes and plays drums on my song and he does a really good take, I'm like, great. Try the kick on whatever, 1 and 3 instead of.
And if it were me trying to give direction, I'd be like, you weren't in the room for this, but I'm like, you went at this time. Oh, what did you go to do? I think you went to grab dinner, and Ed was like playing those guitar, reverby guitar feedback thingies. And I literally said to him, I'm like, you think about unconditional love when you play it. Think about unconditional love when you play it, and it's going to come out right. And, Joe Loftus, too, is so just understanding and really just Joe Loftus owns the studio, and he's also the engineer, and in the same way just understands music and just gets it, and it's just a really great thing. But, so yeah, that's JL Studios in Oliphant, Pennsylvania, if
so
you want to record there.
Yeah, and I would recommend it. We were talking about this on the drive back to New York. This hole-in-the-wall studio in the basement of a music store in this tiny town in Pennsylvania, I haven't found a place like it, and I'm sure they're one of the best at what they do.
It's
matter.
Amazing. For some reason, there's this idea that where a recording studio or even where a person is located like means something. Like, oh, I want to go record music in New York City. And it's like, they're just people, who happen to be located in New York City.
It's a person behind a computer. All the studios are.
That doesn't mean anything. It's just really, it's a lot of money, and it all depends on who that person is hearing the music and if you agree with their instincts and their take on it, and if you work together well and if you understand each other. Like, there's nothing. That's it. It doesn't matter where a studio is. It's all about do you and the person that you're working with, do you see things the same way? Do they have good instincts? Like, yeah, there's nothing cool about, I'm going to go record a record in LA. It's only cool if you're making really good music, but the fact that it's in LA, that doesn't mean much,
sure,
you know? So, but anyway, yeah.
So definitely look out for those songs. Yes, Yes, and Twists and Turns. Those will be coming out hopefully pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
I think I want to release Twists and Turns first out of the ones I have recorded, just because I think it's apt and relevant. But yeah, I think they'll be well received. We're praying that they go far and wide. And
we're praying for that.
If you're listening to this and they happen to be out or out soon, definitely give them a listen.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. what's been on your mind? Tell me what's been in your prayers. What have you been thinking about? What have you been praying about? What's happening?
So, a verse that I came across the day before we went into the studio. So I went home to visit some family for my dad's birthday, and then I flew back to New York, and then the next morning we drove to the studio. So the day before we went into the studio, I came across this verse in 2nd Chronicles, which was really encouraging to me. And 1st and 2nd Chronicles are definitely some of those books in the Bible that it's easy to write off. It's a long history of what happened in the Old Testament, who was king when, what they did, who they fought against, things like that. It's kind of paired with Leviticus and Judges and things like books like that, where it's more historical and you think there's not as much spiritual meat in them, if that makes sense. But I would highly recommend reading 2nd Chronicles. There's so much wisdom in there. And one of the verses I came across was 2nd Chronicles 16:9, and it says, "For the eyes of the Lord move to and fro throughout the earth, that he may strongly support those whose heart is completely his." And that I love, because not just does God want to support those who seek him, and that echoes another thing in the Bible, which is said a bunch of times: if you seek, you will find. Not only does God want to reward those who seek him, but he's actively looking for a reason to do so. He's actively searching the world. His eyes are going to and fro, saying, who is for me and how can I support them? That is so powerful. And, that was so encouraging going into the studio, and you never really know how things are going to work out. We talked about just a minute ago, whoever happens to be there that day changes your song, and whoever plays on it or produces it makes it into a different song. And we were praying that God would bless these songs, and I think in both cases, doors were just open. The right people were there for both of us for the right amount of time. And so that verse totally rang true to me, and it's so encouraging to know that if you have a heart for God and you are actively pursuing him and you seek him and you seek his will and you seek his love, he is aching. He is looking for a reason to give you help, to send aid to you. Isn't that powerful? I love that.
God wants to love people. He wants you. It's kind of like, what I think it is? I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but sometimes, like, in one way or another, maybe it's, you're at a job that you're working and somebody is just, like, super grumpy or whatever. Like, I've worked in restaurants a lot. So a lot of the time, if you're a front of the house person, restaurant industry people will know this. If you're a front of the house, like a server person, the back of the house, the people, the cooks and stuff like that, they're not warm to you, And it's like, hey, like I want to be warm to you. Like I want to, you know what I mean? But like you have to be open to me. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So this is how people work with each other, and this is how God works with us. Like if God already wants you, but if your back is turned to him, or you're saying no, if you're saying I don't believe, or a lot of the time it's not I don't believe. A lot of the time I think deep down it's I don't agree with God, And if you, and so if you say no to God, you can do that. But it's amazing because in that verse, like, God is looking, his eyes are moving to and fro, looking for people that he can support. Just say yes,
Yeah.
Like, God, yes, it's me. Like, I want you.
You're so right. It's not a list of preconditions and exhaustive things you need to do to get God's favor. It's literally just your heart posture. It's if your heart is completely his, he wants to strongly support you. Isn't that amazing? All you have to do is have love in your heart and seek God, and he will bless you. He will bless your life. It's amazing.
Thank God the Bible doesn't teach that you have to do everything exactly right all the time, because
and that's
that would be
evidenced
terrible.
through a lot of the characters in the Bible that God loved so much. David made a lot of mistakes. He killed a lot of people. He was really angry. but his heart was so for God.
Yeah.
He just leaned on God
Yeah.
through his trials, through his successes, and that's what God loved about him. That's why David was a man after God's own heart, because David's heart was so tuned in to what God wants and what God's will is and how to please God. And he didn't get it right every time.
Yeah.
But his heart posture was right.
It's love. That's what God wants. He wants us to love each other. And some people, think this way, and some people think that, whatever. It's clear to me when I read the Bible that the thing that God wants from us is to love each other and to love others and to love him. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. Yeah, so that I remember when you sent me that verse, I was really encouraged by it too, and I had never noted it before. So that's a good one.
Yeah, I hadn't either. So again, there's nuggets like that in every book of the Bible. Every one. There's little pearls of wisdom that are easy to skip over because you might have the perception that it's just a long list of historical events, but yeah, I highly recommend 2nd Chronicles. It's a great book. Yeah,
and you're right. That is something incredible about the Bible. It's these like incredible indications of the mind of God. How God thinks about things. So
and we did that with Philemon and with Jude. Really short books of the Bible. There's wisdom in those too.
Yeah.
So further evidence is that point.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So what's on your mind, Melinda May?
I guess not specific scripture, but I've just been thinking, and I've shared this with you a little bit just today, or maybe before that too, but I've just been thinking how, I really, we serve a living God. God is the God of today. He's the God of now. He's not this God who created the earth and put things in motion and he's just gone now. He's not a God who did all of these miracles in the Bible and now he's dormant. God is really living and alive today, and he's doing things and he's active, and it's incredible. And so I've just been reflecting on, I want a relationship with God that is also alive, in step with him. I want my relationship with God to grow and change, and maybe not change in nature or in character, but I've just been reflecting on the fact that I want to be with God on what God is thinking about today. I don't want to be going through the motions. I don't want to be taking Bible verses along with me like phrases I use in my life. I want the real living God to be present in my life day to day. What an incredible thought.
That is incredible. Yeah.
I thought so, and I'm really inspired by this, and that's what I want for my life, because I know that Jesus is alive, and he's alive right now, and he sits at the right hand of God now. And so I don't just want to go through the motions. I don't just want to, like I said, have these phrases that I live by. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be taking God along with me on my journey. I want to be so in tune to where God is right now. So anyway, I just thought I would share that just in case maybe someone else would be encouraged or inspired by that.
I think that last thing you said really resonates, and I think that's an important point. I think living a life where you're on this journey, and even if you take God along with you and you think, maybe that will help things and maybe it'll make it easier, maybe I'll be more blessed, I think that's slightly misguided, and it's much better to say, God, you're the captain of this journey. I'm just going to follow you. God, make my paths clear and straight. God, bless my life. My life is yours, and I will follow you in it.
That's the kind of relationship that I want with God, living and real and alive, and not just taking God along with me for whatever I want to do, but being so in tune to what God thinks today, so in tune to what God's concerns are today. And that's how I want to live this day, today, and tomorrow too.
I think that's a good philosophy. I think it's good to focus on today.
Yeah.
You know, God says, today's worries are sufficient for today. And Jesus, in an example of how to pray, says, give us this day our daily bread.
Yeah.
You know,
Today.
Let God be the captain of your day.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's what was on my heart, and I just thought I would say that out loud in case it would encourage anybody. Anyway, do we do a question, or do we just call it a
yes,
day?
we got to do a question.
Okay.
We got to do a question.
Sure.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
We've been doing this podcast for months, and I forgot that we do a question at the end of every one.
Yes.
Is it my turn?
I think it's my turn, but almost every
because I think I did do the last one.
This is probably laughable to the listeners because almost every time it's my turn, it's
basically my turn every time.
It's basically your turn every time, right?
It's just a job.
But I think I could think of a question.
Okay.
Just a quick, lighthearted, random question.
Yep.
Which I'm so good at. I'm so good at not going deep. That's sarcasm.
That's not true.
Yeah. Keep it real light. If you want a super light party or whatever, don't call Melinda May. We're going to talk. We're going to get deep. Let me think. What was your favorite, like in the last 4 days and the times we weren't in the studio? What was like something that stood out as something really like fun or just interesting or just like enjoyable? Or
so the time we're in Northeastern Pennsylvania when we weren't in the studio, that wasn't a lot of hours.
Not at all. But like, you know, we got pizza, we got some ice cream, we saw a thing, we hung out with Lily.
I was going to say two things. Sabatini's pizza, real good. Some would say the best in that area, but then again, there's a pizza place for every man, woman, and child and dog in Northeastern Pennsylvania. I don't know how they all survive. I don't know how there's enough demand because...
Yeah, it's the pizza capital of the world. The best pizza is not New York City. I'm telling you, it's not Italy. You're like, Melinda, you haven't been to Italy. I know. It is 100%.
I've been to Italy. The pizza there's fine. There's only so many ways to make a pizza, you know?
No, but Northeastern Pennsylvania, it's the pizza capital of the world. Like, it's so good.
See, if I
it's
had
every
never
style.
been there, I would say that is an incredibly lofty claim. But
it's
I
true.
have been there, and there's some evidence to back that up.
I
for sure.
don't want to, like, because we're already at the end of my podcast, but it's every different kind of pizza in every way that you could. Deep fried pizza. Some has American cheese. It's just like, and everybody has their opinion on who has the best pizza.
It's so interesting to me.
Spoiler alert, it is Sabatini's.
There is a pizza place on every block. There's a pizza place. I don't know how they all survive. And there's nowhere to get coffee.
Nowhere to get a good cup of coffee. I mean, no. Abide. And I want to just say Abide and Wilkes-Barre is really good because that guy is
the
really
only
nice.
coffee shop we've come across in those dozens of tiny little towns.
Yeah.
And, you know, before we went into the studio on our last day, or was that the day after? Well, one of our last days, we waited for 25 minutes to get coffee from Dunkin' Donuts.
25
because
minutes.
there was a line of probably 20 cars to get coffee from Dunkin' Donuts.
There's demand. Someone open a coffee shop.
Everyone goes to Dunkin' Donuts to get their coffee because there's nowhere else to go.
Right.
And they could get pizza from 1,000 different places. I just don't understand.
Yeah. There's also...
Does no one drink coffee there? Like nobody?
The
people that drink coffee are crazy and they all go to Dunkin'?
I just think every time somebody wants to open a small business, it's either a pizza shop or an ice cream shop. There's really good ice cream.
Lots of ice cream, too.
Yeah. And again, that's one of those things that's all different. People have their favorite places. But man, if somebody opened a coffee shop in the right location with some good cold brew, they'd rake it in.
Yeah.
Something to think about, Trev.
Something to think about. I'll put that on the list of ideas.
I got a lot of 'em.
But to answer the question.
Sorry, yeah.
Favorite thing was probably Sabatini's pizzas and playing with your friend Lindsay's baby girl. Lily May Dalton.
Lily May.
Cutest little 8-month-old baby I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of 8-month-old babies, to be clear. But
yeah.
she's so reasonable. She just
yeah.
hangs out. She's there to hang out. You know, she's a good time. She's so fun.
Yeah, she's very... You could tell she's comfortable. She's comfortable in herself.
She's
She's
so
secure.
fun to play with.
She's just... Yeah, she just... inserts joy into the room.
It boggles my mind, and my brother's going to have a baby soon too, and I think it's going to boggle my mind even more then. But it's amazing to see a brand new human. This thing looks like human. It looks like its parents, and it can, run around and think and grab things, and it's amazing. A human was created.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it isn't. It's especially when it's like you said, it's about to be your brother, and especially when it's my childhood best friend since 5th grade. It's so weird to me that this woman has made another human. It's really weird to think about. But anyway.
So that was probably my favorite part.
Yeah.
What about yours?
Definitely hanging out and talking with the Daltons is up there. I just love them. Lindsay and Shane are Lindsay and I have been friends since 5th grade, and then she met Shane 10 years ago or something, and so he's kind of been in the family too, and they went to my church for many years, know my family really well. And just hanging out and talking with them was just so good for the soul,
It was, yeah.
And then also I just really like road tripping with you. I find it
is fun.
I find it just so fun. We're going here, we're going there, we're making plans. We got to do this. Okay, well, should we do it this way?
Yeah.
It's all just fun to me,
It is fun.
Traveling with you is just it feels like an adventure, and it feels like we're
totally agree.
Yeah, and we're always coming upon this newness in everything we do, and it's just really fun. I think we should do it.
We will do it more. I'm sure we will. We're planning a big trip for September.
And oh yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Go on.
We're planning a big trip for September, and that one's going to be an adventure for sure.
Yeah. And nothing's ever incredibly stressful. I did get really upset about those olives. We won't go there, but
I wrote that in my daily log.
Not that
you got super upset about olives, but just that trying to get a salad was a catastrophe.
It was really hard. I really just wanted a salad,
and no one would give you a salad.
No, right.
And we couldn't get the app to work on the one place that did have olives, and it was a huge mess. It was just a mess. It was a failure.
Yes. But point being, we'll tell that story another time, but because it's a little ridiculous. But the point is nothing is ever this big stressful, everything is just, it just feels like we're on this unfolding adventure, even though we're just going to my hometown, Anyway, so I just like that. I just thought it was really fun. That's probably my favorite.
Too.
Yeah.
It's always an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, sir, I think we've done it.
You think that'll do it?
I do.
I think that will do it.
Yeah.
Well, I think this was a good discussion. We talked about the studio. We talked about, God's plan for us and how he loves us. And then we talked about Northeastern Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good, start to finish conversation.
I think we got it.
Well, thank you for spending your time with us. I hope this was encouraging to you. And please get involved. Follow us on Instagram, send us a DM, send us an email. All that info should be in the outro coming up just after this. But thank you for spending your time with us.
See you next Saturday. If you liked this episode, send it to someone you love. Also, follow us on Instagram at Stronger Voices Podcast.
You can email us at contact@strongervoicespodcast.com. We appreciate you spending your time with us today, and we'll see you for the next episode.